Have you ever frozen when someone asked you, what do you do for fun? Do you always reply with a boring textbook answer like, I like reading? Welcome to the LevelUp English Podcast. Today, we are going to make your small talk much more interesting. We will teach you the natural, native-sounding phrases to talk about your hobbies, how often you do them, and why you love them, so you can connect with people instantly.
So you know the exact feeling. You are standing at a networking event or maybe like a colleague's dinner party.
Oh, yeah. The classic scenario.
Right. And you've got this lukewarm beverage in one hand and maybe a tiny, incredibly awkward paper napkin in the other.
Which is doing absolutely nothing for the condensation, by the way.
Exactly. It's useless. And the small talk has been predictably mundane. You know, you've covered the weather, you've totally exhausted the local traffic patterns. And then the person across from you smiles, tilts their head, and drops the question.
Uh-oh. I know what's coming.
So what do you do for fun? Or, what are your hobbies? And suddenly there is this universal low-level panic that just strikes you.
Oh, absolutely. It's terrifying.
Your mind goes entirely blank. You freeze up. And out comes this robotic default setting answer, like, I like playing football, or I like reading books.
It is a profound moment of conversational paralysis. Because the question seems so innocuous on the surface, doesn't it?
It really does. Like, it should be easy.
Right. But the social stakes actually feel incredibly high. The person is essentially asking you to summarize your joy, your identity, and your leisure in this neat little package, right on demand.
Yeah, which is a lot of pressure.
It's a huge amount of pressure.
Yeah.
And when you fall back on those rigid, autopilot linguistic structures, you are absolutely selling yourself short. I mean, you're handing them a black and white stick figure drawing when you actually possess this rich, full-color portrait of a life to share.
And that feeling of falling back on autopilot, it isn't just a beginner's issue, right? We see highly proficient, intermediate, and advanced English speakers do this constantly when they're put on the spot.
Oh, all the time.
They just default to, I like. So the mission of this deep dive today is to fundamentally upgrade your conversational toolkit. We are looking at a brilliant linguistic framework for talking about hobbies and free time in English.
Which is so necessary.
Yeah, we really want to analyze the mechanics of how to move from those stiff transactional exchanges to dynamic native-sounding connections.
And it requires looking at the psychology behind the words. Because before we even get into the vocabulary itself, we really need to examine the premise of the question.
Let's do it.
Because, as AI, we observe the human concept of a hobby from a slightly detached perspective. And honestly, it is endlessly fascinating.
Oh, totally. It's a bizarre concept to us.
Right, because humans have this incredibly limited, finite amount of energy and time on this planet. Yet you voluntarily choose to spend a significant portion of it on entirely non-productive, non-survival tasks.
Exactly. From a purely utilitarian standpoint, it looks completely counterintuitive. I mean, you expend thousands of calories to run in circles around a track.
Just running for no reason.
Right. Or you spend significant financial resources to collect pieces of cardboard with pictures of athletes on them. Or, like, hours meticulously arranging tiny succulents in ceramic pots. There is literally no immediate survival benefit to any of this.
None whatsoever. But when we analyze human behavior and the underlying biology, we see that these so-called inefficient activities are actually the very mechanisms that keep your nervous systems from collapsing.
Wow, collapsing. That's a strong word.
But it's true. Sustained cortisol levels from modern environments like the stress of your jobs, the economy, just daily friction, they are toxic to the human animal.
So the hobby is like a cure.
Exactly. What you call a hobby is essentially a hacked biological recovery protocol. You immerse yourselves in a lower stakes cognitive load to literally flush the stress hormones from your system.
That makes so much sense.
They're essential to your emotional equilibrium. And how you articulate that process to another person, well, it reveals so much about who you are.
Which means the words we choose to describe these activities carry an immense amount of weight. If a hobby is keeping you psychologically afloat, introducing it with a flimsy phrase like, I like, does a massive disservice to the activity.
A total disservice.
Let's really deconstruct that phrase. I like playing tennis. I like reading. When you analyze the positioning there, it feels entirely passive.
It is passive. And more than that, it's transactional.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It is the exact same grammatical structure and emotional weight you use to talk about a sandwich.
Right, like, I like this turkey sandwich.
Exactly. Or a pleasant shade of blue on a wall. I like that color. When you say, I like tennis, you are placing tennis at a distance from yourself. You are a consumer of the sport, sure, but it doesn't define you. It's an observation, not an identity.
So we clearly need to upgrade that software. If we look at the alternatives, the framework suggests phrases like I'm really into, I'm a big fan of, and I'm quite passionate about.
Those are fantastic upgrades.
Let's start with I'm really into photography right now. I look at that phrase, and the word into strikes me as a very deliberate spatial metaphor.
Ooh, I like that. Spatial metaphor.
Yeah, because you aren't just observing the hobby, you've crossed a threshold.
That is precisely how native speakers process it. The spatial metaphor implies immersion. You aren't standing outside the concept of photography looking at it through a window. You have stepped inside the world of lenses, lighting, and composition.
You're surrounded by it.
Exactly. You are surrounded. It immediately communicates depth.
There is an undeniable texture to it. And what about I'm a big fan of? The framework notes this is particularly effective for consuming content, sports, or genres like I'm a big fan of sci-fi movies. I suspect the power here comes from the implication of community.
It does, absolutely.
Yeah.
If we look at the etymology, fan is short for fanatic, which originally derived from the Latin fanatica.
Oh, bringing out the Latin, I love it.
You know I have to. It meant a temple servant or someone inspired by a deity. It historically denoted belonging to a specific group or belief system.
That's intense, but it makes sense.
It does. In modern conversational usage, it still signals belonging. When you say, I like sci-fi, you are an isolated data point. You are just watching a movie alone in your house.
Right, just you and the TV.
But when you say, I'm a big fan of sci-fi, you are instantly signaling that you belong to a broader community of enthusiasts. You are participating in a collective reality. It invites the listener to recognize you as part of a tribe.
It's an invitation to find common ground. If I say, I like sci-fi, it's a closed loop. If I say I'm a big fan, I'm almost prompting you to ask me which franchise I follow or, to share your own affiliations.
Precisely. It opens a door rather than closing one.
Now let's look at the third upgrade. I'm quite passionate about. For example, I'm quite passionate about baking.
This is a tricky one for a lot of people.
It really is. I've noticed that language learners and even many native speakers hesitate to use the word passionate in casual settings. I have a hypothesis about this.
Let's hear it.
I think people feel that passionate requires them to lower their social armor. Like if you are standing at a corporate event trying to look professional and detached, turning to a colleague and declaring you are passionate about restoring vintage keyboards, it feels like a massive emotional risk. Is it perceived as too intense?
It is a vulnerability play, and your hypothesis about social armor is spot on. Many people operate under the assumption that projecting a cool, detached demeanor is the safest way to navigate small talk.
Because nobody wants to be the weird, intense person at the party.
Exactly. But if we analyze the mechanics of modern conversational English and social psychology, showing enthusiasm is actually interpreted as a sign of safety and openness, not aggression or over-intensity.
Wait, how does enthusiasm equal safety? That seems backward.
Because when you say you are passionate about something, even something highly niche, you are signaling to the listener that you have a capacity for joy. You are willing to drop the pretense.
Oh, I see.
People are incredibly drawn to genuine enthusiasm because it's authentic. By modeling that vulnerability, by saying, I care deeply about this and I'm willing to admit it, you are subtly giving the other person permission to drop their own armor and talk about their own weird, wonderful obsessions.
But the delivery must matter here, right? I mean, the how is just as important as the what. If I lock eyes with someone, refuse to blink, and aggressively whisper, I am passionate about baking, that is going to trigger a fight or flight response.
Oh, absolutely. Please don't do that. The tone carries the context.
Yeah.
The phrase, I'm quite passionate about, should be delivered with a relaxed posture, perhaps a slight, self-aware smile, and an easy cadence.
So keep it light.
Yes. The enthusiasm should be in the warmth of your voice, not in the volume or the intensity of your eye contact. It's a casual offering of your identity, not a manifesto.
Okay, so once you invite someone into that space, once you establish that you are into photography or passionate about baking, you immediately run into a very human wall.
Reality.
Exactly, reality. Having an identity is great, but claiming that identity requires time. And time, as we've established, is your ultimate finite resource. This naturally shifts the conversation from who you are to how you manage your schedule.
And this is where the conversational autopilot often kicks in again. People default to highly rigid, almost clinical markers of frequency, like, I play guitar every day, I go hiking sometimes, I read books twice a week.
Sometimes is the worst offender there. It is a completely empty metric.
It really is.
It provides zero texture to a person's life. It just means the frequency is greater than 0 and less than infinity. That could mean literally anything.
It gives the listener absolutely nothing to work with. Contrast that with dynamic temporal phrases. Instead of sometimes, consider the phrase, whenever I get the chance. As in, I play guitar whenever I get the chance. This is a masterclass in subtlety.
Let's pull that apart. Whenever I get the chance, there's an almost romantic tension in that phrase, isn't there?
Very much so.
You're essentially describing a person stealing moments for their passion against the crushing weight of their schedule. It tells a whole story about the friction between their responsibilities and their desires.
Exactly. You are subtly communicating. My life is demanding. I have obligations, but there is this persistent, unyielding desire within me to play that guitar, and the moment a gap opens up in my responsibilities, that is where my energy goes.
It's such a better story than sometimes.
It validates the busyness of adult life while still fiercely claiming the hobby.
I love the nuance of that. Let's look at another one. I try to make time for it on weekends. The active verb there, make time, is fascinating to me.
Oh, the verb choice is everything.
Right. Time isn't just a weather system happening to you. Time is a raw material. You have to actively shape it and defend it against the current of a busy life.
That framing is crucial. If you don't make the time will be consumed by the vacuum of chores, emails, and errands. Saying, I try to make time shows intent. It shows that you value this part of your identity enough to put up a boundary around it.
Now, I want to explore the darker, slightly more dishonest side of these frequency phrases.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Because humans are notorious for creating aspirational identities. Is it possible that people use a phrase like, whenever I get the chance, as a linguistic shield?
What do you mean?
Well, let's say someone bought a very expensive guitar, played it twice, and it has been gathering dust in the corner of their living room for 6 months. They don't want to admit they failed at their new habit. Doesn't whenever I get the chance conveniently cover up the fact that the chance hasn't actually arisen in half a year?
Oh, human self-deception regarding aspirational identities is one of the most well-documented phenomena in psychology.
So I'm right.
You are. Yes, whenever I get the chance can absolutely translate to, I never get the chance, but I deeply value thinking of myself as the kind of person who would.
It's the aspirational guitar, acting purely as a piece of identity furniture.
Precisely. It's decor at that point. But here is the secret of small talk that is perfectly acceptable. A casual conversation at a networking event is not a deposition under oath.
True. No one is fact-checking your guitar hours.
Right. You are allowed to present your aspirational self. A polite fiction like, whenever I get the chance, gracefully bridges the gap between who you want to be and what your schedule currently allows.
Yeah.
It maintains the social flow without requiring a painful confession of your time management failures.
That makes total sense. Now let's swing to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. What if you aren't hiding a lack of practice, but rather hiding an overwhelming obsession?
The deep end.
The framework suggests a phrase like, I'm an absolute addict. For example, I'm an absolute video game addict. I play every night. Why do humans use clinical terminology for pathology addiction to describe playing a farming simulator or knitting a scarf?
It is a highly sophisticated social tool rooted in self-deprecating hyperbole.
Hyperbole is always fun.
It is. By purposely inflating the severity of your habit to an absurd pathological degree, you are preemptively taking control of the narrative.
You're beating them to the punchline. Like, if I admit I play video games for 3 hours every single night, I risk you silently judging me as lazy or antisocial. But if I lean in with a grin and call myself an absolute addict, I've already made the joke.
Exactly. You own the judgment.
Right, I own it, so you can't use it against me.
It's a linguistic shield made of humor. Furthermore, it completely disarms the listener. It builds immediate rapport because it demonstrates that you do not take yourself too seriously. You are willing to make yourself the butt of the joke to keep the interaction light and engaging.
Okay, so we've established the identity. We've established the reality of the schedule, whether it's aspirational or humorously obsessive. But if we look at the mechanics of these interactions, the true bridge to human connection isn't the when, it's the why.
Yes, you have to offer the emotional core of the activity.
The because factor. This is where a conversation transitions from a mere exchange of data into actual empathy.
This is the most crucial part of the framework.
The empathy gap is a real challenge in these conversations. Let's imagine you're talking to someone who is deeply passionate about restoring vintage tractors.
Okay, tractors.
Yeah. I personally have absolutely zero interest in tractors. I don't know the mechanics. I don't care about the history. I don't like getting grease on my hands. If the conversation stays entirely focused on the engine parts, the sourcing of vintage bolts, the gap between us is vast.
You're basically speaking different languages.
Exactly. We have absolutely nothing to connect over. I am just nodding politely and searching for an exit strategy.
Right, because the factual data of the hobby creates a barrier to entry. But the moment that person pivots to the why, the entire dynamic changes.
How so?
Well, if they say, I love restoring these old tractors because it completely takes my mind off the stress of my corporate job. It's just me, the tools, and a tangible problem I can actually fix with my own hands. It really helps me unwind.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly, the tractor itself becomes irrelevant.
It's just a vehicle for the feeling. I might not know anything about engines, but I absolutely know what it feels like to need to unwind.
Everyone does.
I know what work stress feels like. I know the desire for a tangible, solvable problem when modern life feels incredibly abstract.
They have successfully translated a highly niche, exclusive activity into a universal emotional experience. You can completely empathize with the feeling of stress relief, even if your chosen method for achieving it is drastically different. The why serves as the universal translator of the human experience.
Let's look at the specific phrases the framework provides for this translation. For relaxing hobbies like reading, gardening, listening to music, we have things like, it helps me unwind after a long day. It's a great stress reliever, and it takes my mind off work.
Those are powerful phrases.
They really are. And from an observational standpoint, human leisure is an incredible biological workaround. The phrasing, takes my mind off work, is particularly telling to me.
In what way?
The human brain requires active deception, like deliberately focusing on a lower stakes task, like weeding a garden, in order to stop endlessly looping over the anxieties of survival and economics.
It's the only way your neural pathways can reset. And conversely, look at the phrases provided for active or creative hobbies, like sports, painting, or coding. I love the thrill of it. It keeps me active and fit. I enjoy the creative process.
Those serve the exact same translation function.
Yes. You might not understand rock climbing, but if someone says, I love the thrill of it, your brain immediately maps that onto whatever gives you a thrill. Maybe that's public speaking, maybe it's riding a motorcycle. The empathy gap is bridged instantly.
There is also a strategic element to volunteering the why without being prompted. I view it as an act of profound conversational generosity.
I love that phrasing, conversational generosity.
Thanks. Think about the friction of small talk. If I simply state, I paint miniature figurines, and stop talking, I am forcing you to do the heavy lifting.
Right, because now I have to figure out what to say next.
Exactly. You have to feign interest, dig into your brain for a relevant follow-up question, and keep the ball in the air. Like, oh, what kind of figurines?
Which is exhausting.
But if I offer the emotional core up front, I paint miniature figurines because I find the intense micro-level focus is a great stress reliever. I've removed the friction. I've handed you the meaning on a silver platter. You don't have to guess why I care.
It paves the road for the listener. Instead of struggling to ask about paint types or brush sizes, they can respond emotionally. I totally get that need for focus. I get that same feeling when I'm baking bread. It ensures the conversation does not stall.
But let's introduce a complication here. What happens when the why hasn't actually resulted in mastery yet?
The beginner phase.
Right. What if you can't talk about the thrill of success or the deep relaxation of a long-held habit because you literally just bought the equipment yesterday? Human identities are constantly evolving. People discard old interests and adopt new ones all the time.
Talking about something you are inherently bad at, which is the definition of being a beginner, requires a very specific linguistic touch.
It is a critical conversational skill. And the framework addresses this by focusing heavily on phrasal verbs. For a language learner, phrasal verbs are often the final hurdle to sounding truly natural.
They are notoriously difficult.
Let's briefly demystify that for anyone listening who might not love grammar jargon. A phrasal verb is essentially just a base verb paired with a preposition or an adverb, and when you put them together, it completely changes the original meaning of the word.
Right. You aren't literally taking something up into the air.
Exactly. The meaning is idiomatic, and the phrases highlighted here are to take up, as in, I've recently taken up yoga. I'm currently learning how to, I'm currently learning how to edit videos, and I've been meaning to try. For example, I've been meaning to try rock climbing.
Let's analyze the psychological protection these phrases offer, starting with take up.
Well, I hypothesize that take-up is a defense mechanism against ego risk. If you declare, I am a yogi, or I practice yoga, you are claiming a definitive identity.
Which is a bold claim if you just started.
Exactly. If you then fall over trying to touch your toes in front of that person later, you look foolish. But take-up sounds incredibly fluid and casual. It implies you have merely picked an object up to examine it.
It significantly lowers the stakes of failure.
Right. If you just took it up, it implies you can just as easily put it down if it doesn't work out. It protects your ego while still allowing you to claim the fresh interest.
That is a very accurate assessment. It manages expectations perfectly. And we see a similar ego management strategy in the phrase, I'm currently learning how to.
How so?
In a societal structure where everyone is pressured to project expertise and competence, openly stating, I am currently learning, strips away all pretense. It is an inherently humble posture.
It's an admission of vulnerability.
Yes, and from a psychological standpoint, vulnerability is the fastest catalyst for connection. When you admit you are struggling to learn video editing, it triggers a pro-social response in the listener.
They want to help.
Exactly. They instinctively want to support you, offer encouragement, or share their own embarrassing struggles with learning a new skill. It completely disarms any potential competitiveness in the interaction. You cannot compete with someone who openly admits they don't know what they are doing yet.
That brings us to my absolute favorite phrase in this entire framework. I've been meaning to try.
Well, this is a good one.
Let's say someone asks what you do for fun, and you respond, well, I've been meaning to try rock climbing, but I haven't had the time yet. This is wild to me. You are revealing an aspirational identity. You are talking about a hobby that doesn't even exist in your life yet.
It's entirely theoretical.
Exactly. You are projecting a future version of yourself into the current conversation. It's a fascinating linguistic maneuver.
It really is.
I see it as throwing a conversational grappling hook. When you say, I've been meaning to try rock climbing, you are tossing this hook across the chasm of the conversation out into the dark, just hoping the other person catches it.
Because it's an invitation.
It is the ultimate low-pressure invitation. You are practically begging the other person to say, oh my gosh, I rock climb. You should come with me to the gym next Tuesday. You are transforming small talk into a launch pad for a shared adventure.
The grappling hook analogy is highly appropriate here. Because consider the risk profile of this move. If they don't catch the hook, if they say, oh, rock climbing, I hate heights, no harm is done.
Right, the hook just falls harmlessly to the ground.
Exactly. You haven't lost any face because you haven't even started the hobby yet. You just say, yeah, heights are tough, and move on.
But if they do catch it...
If they do catch it, you have instantly bypassed months of casual acquaintance and surface-level interactions. You've moved straight into coordinating a shared physical activity. It violently accelerates the friendship in the best way possible.
Let's roleplay that for a second. You say to me, I've been meaning to try that new Thai cooking class downtown, and I say, no way, I was literally just looking at their schedule online. Boom.
We have a shared goal.
We have a reason to text each other later. The meaning to try implies you already possess the desire, you merely lack the catalyst. And you are graciously offering the other person the opportunity to be that catalyst.
It is a highly strategic, proactive, conversational move, cleverly disguised as casual hesitation.
Okay, so if we look at the architecture we have built so far, you've established your identity using spatial metaphors like into and vulnerability, like passionate.
Yeah.
You've defined your boundaries in your relationship with time using phrases like whenever I get the chance.
Yep.
You've offered the emotional generosity of the because factor to bridge the empathy gap. You've even thrown out the grappling hook of the novice with meaning to try. You have delivered an absolute masterclass in articulating who you are.
However, there is a structural flaw if you stop at this point.
Oh, totally. If you execute all of these steps perfectly and then just stand there in silence waiting for applause, you are a conversational narcissist.
Basically giving a TED Talk about yourself.
Right. You are essentially delivering a lecture. The social contract of small talk dictates equilibrium. If you take up space, you must offer space in return. Which brings us to the final, indispensable piece of the puzzle. The dance of reciprocity. Passing the mic.
The pivot phrases required here are elegantly simple. How about you? What do you do in your free time? Are you into any sports? Do you have any hobbies?
They sound so basic.
They seem incredibly basic, almost rudimentary compared to the psychological nuance we've just discussed. But the underlying mechanics of why we must use them and the effect they have on both the speaker and the listener are profound.
Let's examine this from the perspective of our target audience, many of whom are speaking English as a second, third, or fourth language. Speaking a non-native language, especially in a socially pressurized environment like a networking event, is exhausting.
Oh, the cognitive load is immense.
It requires massive cognitive overhead.
It is intense computational labor. Your brain is simultaneously searching for vocabulary, conjugating verbs, monitoring sentence structure, parsing the other person's body language, and trying to project a pleasant demeanor.
It's a high-burn state, so I look at passing the mic, asking, "How about you?" as literal physical relief mechanism. It is a tactical retreat.
A tactical retreat, I like that.
When you pass the question back, you give your brain a chance to sit down on a bench and rest. You switch out of the high burn state of active speaking and translation and drop into the much lower burn state of passive listening.
It's a strategic breather.
Exactly. You ask, "Are you into any sports?" And then you get to simply nod, maintain eye contact, and sip your lukewarm beverage for 3 solid minutes while they do the heavy lifting.
It is essential for cognitive pacing in a second language. But the beauty of this tactical retreat is that the other person will absolutely love you for it.
Why is that? Why do humans respond so positively to being prompted to speak about themselves?
Because of the neurological reward systems involved. When you ask someone, what do you do in your free time? Well, you are not placing a burden on them. You are giving them a gift.
Your gift of the spotlight.
Exactly. You are handing them an open stage. Neurological studies utilizing fMRI scans demonstrate that talking about oneself activates the mesolimbic dopamine system.
Wait, the dopamine system?
Yes, the exact same reward centers in the brain that light up in response to primary rewards like food, money, or sex.
That is incredible. So by simply asking, "How about you?" Jory, you are effectively administering a dopamine hit to your conversational partner.
You are inducing a mild state of euphoria. You are making them feel seen, valued, and fundamentally interesting. And this ties into the psychology of human memory.
Oh, so?
Well, the peak-end rule and various memory heuristics dictate that people do not necessarily remember the exact data points of what you said to them. They remember the emotional resonance of the interaction. They remember how you made them feel.
So if you ask well-placed questions and give them the floor, they will walk away from that interaction thinking, "Wow, that person was such an incredibly engaging, articulate conversationalist."
Even if they themselves did 80% of the talking.
It is the ultimate conversational hack. Be a generous listener, and people will perceive you as a brilliant speaker.
It requires minimal output for maximum social return. And you can tailor these pivot questions based on the contextual clues they've already provided. If they have an athletic build or wearing a fitness tracker, you lean into, are you into any sports?
Right. And if they seem more introverted or you are at a tech conference,
then do you have any hobbies? Opens the floor to reading, coding, or gaming.
I also want to point out the power of mirroring structures here. If you use the phrase, "I'm really into photography," to describe yourself, mirroring that exact prepositional structure back to them, "Are you into any sports?" creates a subconscious linguistic symmetry.
It does. It binds the conversation together.
It makes the conversation feel incredibly cohesive, like a choreographed dance, rather than a disjointed interrogation.
Mirroring builds rapport at a subconscious level. It signals that you are operating on the same wavelengths.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today. It feels like we've completely dismantled the old, dusty, creaking machinery of, "I like playing tennis," and constructed a sleek, highly efficient engine for genuine human connection. Let's trace the arc of what we've built.
The overarching theme has been the transition from transactional data exchange to emotional storytelling.
Exactly. We initiated the upgrade by shifting identity. We recognize that moving beyond "I like" isn't merely about sounding more fluent, it's about signaling participation.
Using spatial metaphors like "I'm really into" or embracing the vulnerability of "I'm passionate about" invites the listener into your world and lowers the social armor that prevents real connection.
From there, we examine the chronology of how these passions fit into reality. We saw how describing your frequency, whether acknowledging the friction of a busy life with "whenever I get the chance," or utilizing the humor shield of calling yourself an absolute addict, reveals your boundaries.
It shows your priorities and your ability to navigate the relentless demands of modern life.
We then explored the vital emotional core, the because factor. We established that you must bridge the empathy gap by explaining why you engage in a hobby.
You translate the specific niche mechanics of your activity into universal human needs, like the need to unwind, flush cortisol, or experience a thrill. You do the emotional heavy lifting so your partner doesn't have to guess why it matters.
We also embrace the evolving nature of human interest through the vulnerability of the novice. By utilizing phrasal verbs like take up, you soften the ego risk of being a beginner.
And by deploying the conversational grappling hook of I've been meaning to try, you project an aspirational identity and invite shared experiences.
And finally, we finalize the social contract through the dance of reciprocity. Passing the mic, asking how about you, not only provides your own brain with the necessary cognitive rest, especially crucial for language learners, but also administers a neurological reward to your partner,
leaving them with a deeply positive emotional memory of the interaction. It is a holistic, empathetic system for better dialogue.
It effectively removes the paralyzing fear from the question, what do you do for fun? And transforms it into a strategic opportunity for connection.
It really does.
As we close out this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with the final, somewhat philosophical concept to consider, something to turn over in your mind that builds on the mechanics we've discussed today.
Always good to leave them thinking.
All right. So we exist in a globalized modern framework where humans are relentlessly defined by their economic output. You are defined by your job title, your online profile, your productivity metrics. The first question at almost any social gathering is predictably, what do you do for a living?
It is a profound and somewhat tragic societal reduction of human worth.
It really is. So consider this. What if learning how to eloquently, passionately, and vulnerably articulate your free time mastering these phrases and psychological nuances we've unpacked today isn't just a language learning trick to sound more native?
What if it's more than that?
What if it is actually the ultimate act of reclaiming your humanity from a hyper-productive, purely transactional world? Think about that the next time you're standing by the snack table with a lukewarm drink. What if your true identity, the absolute core of who you are, isn't defined by what you do when you are getting paid, but rather by the beautiful, inefficient, depthly personal things you choose to do when no one is paying you at all?
That is a brilliant thought to end on.
Until next time, keep the conversation going.
Try saying, I'm really into, instead of, I like, and watch how the conversation grows. If you enjoyed today's lesson, please hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and share this with your friends. Have a fantastic day, enjoy your hobbies, and keep leveling up your English.